In fact, the only unrealistic attitude, in my opinion, is thinking, and someone does so, not only in Brussels, unfortunately, that going on with the same doctors and the same treatments which have already sickened the patient might, for some mysterious reason, be working in the future. I don't think so, of course. And that's why we need some fresh thinking and why we must reject the European status quo. A few general remarks and then some specific economic proposals. Preparing my speaking points for today's meeting, I found myself thinking of the mass destruction weapons we have been forced to come to terms with in the last 3 or 4 years. Think of the worst one, the Juncker plan, a stream of disconnected ideas with occasional, I'd like to say, accidental lapses into reality, which, with no results, with no achievements. It has been said by the great Charles Moore on The Spectator that the role played by Mr. Juncker in the European Commission shares some similarities with the role played by Mr. Sepp Blatter in FIFA. A sort of emblem of the status quo. An emblem of the establishment. And again, the great Charles Moore provides us with an interesting remark. He says that Brussels guys, the leaders of the current EU project, are a group of, he says, of highly educated people who have found a way of staying in power without submitting to the boring task of submitting to general elections, democratic accountability, and things of the kind. Last week's case is an eye-opener. I'm talking about the EU Commission's decision against Apple and against the Irish government. The EU has shown once again its true face behind the mask. In Brussels, they hold low taxes systems in contempt. They hold fiscal competition in contempt, and above all, there is an appointed body, an unelected body, which presumes they can dictate to an elected government which taxes they should or should not levy, and what is more, retroactively. I don't have to underline the incredible level of uncertainty that this kind of maneuver introduces into the corporate decision-making process. Everyone can fear that sooner or later my enterprise, my business, will receive a post-dated tax bill. Well, I have to say that Brexit has offered us a huge and blessed opportunity to say that the emperor, the European emperor, has no clothes. And before I come to 4 specific economic points, let me dwell for another minute on the big picture. In my opinion, the time has come to realize that too much time, too many energies have been spent and perhaps wasted on the institutional aspect of the European architecture. Many have focused their attention on the institutional tools, forgetting the political will and courage to carry out real reforms. They have mixed up the means with the purposes. Let me quote Mrs. Thatcher and what she presciently explained in a major Bruges speech in 1988. Quote, "The community should be, not an end in itself, nor it is an institutional device to be constantly modified according to the dictates of some abstract intellectual concept, nor must it be ossified by endless regulation. The European community should be a practical means by which Europe can ensure the future prosperity and security of its people in a world in which there are many other powerful nations and groups of nations. We Europeans," she said, "cannot afford to waste our energies on internal disputes or arcane institutional debates." She was right. And this is the main reason, from my perspective, why we must now absolutely reject the so-called 5 Presidents report That would be the final cage, the final attempt to impose an absolute straitjacket of uniformity from Finland to Portugal. We must make clear that we need free competition between different models, a willing cooperation and a virtuous challenge between different fiscal and legal systems, and not a single and unique solution imposed to everyone. Now, if I might, here are 4 short, specific economic remarks. The first one, the quantitative easing from the ECB is not working. Everyone can find his or her favorite explanation, because you may say, as I'm inclined to say, it couldn't have worked, or on the contrary, you may think that the national government have not been able to make the most of the window of opportunity that the QE was to create. But in either case, the monetary policy drug is not enough to boost the economy, and thinking that turning on the money printing machine would solve all problems, forgetting proper supply-side reforms, a shock tax cut, a shock spending cut, a shock sovereign debt cut, and so on, was, to be kind and polite, a total illusion. The quantitative easing was supposed to push up prices and to revive the economy. It didn't happen. And I would like to remind that Friedrich von Hayek was awarded the Nobel Prize for his business cycle theory, according to which a monetary disturbance, for example, a huge increase in the money stock, triggers a dangerous and artificial fall in interest rates. Second point, this policy of cheap money and low rates, or even of negative rates, is killing many things. First of all, it's killing the profitability of the banking system. Second point, what is more, it's undermining hopes and aspiration of savers and investors. Ultra-low interest rates don't entice people to rely on bank and saving accounts. Real returns are zero or something of the kind. As Alistair Heath recently wrote on the Telegraph, permanently negative interest rates make it much harder to preserve, let alone grow, capital. Third point, in Europe we are too focused on the issue of liquidity and too little focused on the issue of solvability. What happens if savers want to withdraw their money? We have to restore confidence. In that, I agree entirely with the worries expressed by Lord Melvin King, the former governor of the Bank of England, in his book, The End of the Alchemy, and his bold proposal, the central banks should pass from the condition of lenders of last resort to the condition of pawnbrokers for all seasons, appears to me sensible and reasonable, and really to discuss if we want to restore real confidence. Last point, we need a backup plan for the euro. Of course, I don't like all over continental Europe the merchants of fear. I'll call them the cows sellers who go on proposing lips in the darks. Many of our countries, Italy for example, are not the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, we are not the fourth military global power, we are not the fifth economy in the world, and we are overwhelmed by our sovereign debt. So, for example, in Italy, we have to pay serious attention. But on the other hand, the time has come to outline different scenarios and to have a coping strategy, a backup plan. No one can honestly take for granted that what has not worked so far will be working in the future. Let's not forget, it has been said in this roundtable, that we are witnessing many signals of a possible future crisis. It is impossible to make predictions. We don't have a crystal ball at hand, but we have many signals on the carpet: low interest rates, high sovereign debt, feeble growth. This might trigger a new crisis. My political point is, we need a network of countries and political movements. The ECR group and the AECR as an alliance of movement can lead that process to keep together all those who, across Europe, are against the European status quo. To make an example, we might push for a second and European renegotiation process based on 3 points. First, push for a multi-speed, multi-tier union in which any member can join in or abstain from program that sue it or don't sue it then. Second point, I'm finishing. Prevent a euro area finance secretary with a mission of harmonizing, that is to say, building the final cage. On the contrary, we need fiscal competition. And last, Mr. President, pass a sort of sovereignty bill in as many European countries as possible, stating that the EU rule may prevail unless they are overturned by national parliament or repealed by constitutional courts, as is happening in Germany. The best thing, in my opinion, would be that national parliament should be given a general opt-out option on anything that comes from Brussels. The EU must not be a cage. It should be a means by which we can achieve our purposes of democracy, free market, full respect for the taxpayers. Thank you, sir.